Alright, let's talk about Allegro non Troppo. That title translates to, it translates to several things, and they all kind of, it takes on an interesting double or even triple meaning. But I guess, let's see, yeah, it translates to either not so fast or what was it? Joyful but not too joyful, which fits the mood of the film. Um, so anyway, this is an Italian movie by Bruno Bozzetto, who is the same guy who did. Weston Soda and VIP, My Brother Superman. Um, and the movie is a parody of Fantasia. So yeah, like Fantasia, it takes some famous classical pieces and puts them to animation. Although the animations in this one are a little darker and more adult and kind of cynical, there's like live action segments between them, there's like like in Fantasia, we got like this host and a conductor, and both of them are these fictional characters, and they're portrayed as like really horrible dudes who have a bunch of old lady slaves who serve as the orchestra, and they also have an animator who's also their slave, and he has to animate all the pieces like on the spot, and sometimes his animations like come to life right there. I guess the animator is kind of like a caricature of Bozzetto himself, so yeah. And we get a lot of these said slaves getting abused by, the conductor, and the host is overlooking all of it, and he's trying to get the show moving even while a bunch of shenanigans are going on there. So yeah, and there's kind of like a funny bit at the beginning where he says it's like a completely original idea, the concept of the movie where they put famous classical pieces to animation. He says it's a completely original idea, and then he gets a call from California informing him that somebody already did it. He says, apparently this idea was already done by some guy named Prisney or whatever, some dude from America. That got a chuckle out of me. Anything else? It's like a darker take on Fantasia, obviously. I guess I'll get to the segments themselves. So, let's see. First off, we got, how do you pronounce it? Debussy's Prelude à l'après midi d'une faune. So, yeah, it's a... so it's basically kind of inspired in a way. It's like a satire of a satire of Pastoral Symphony from Fantasia. It's got like all these naked. Well, it's got naked ladies all over the place, and like there's this satyr. Yeah, it's like an elderly satyr who's trying to, he's trying to get himself some tail, if you will, and even though the ladies don't have tails, you know what I mean. But yeah, he's so old, the ladies don't want him. And then he seems to get smaller by the end. So, like, he shrinks, and then he, like, travels around this, this vast countryside, as Wikipedia says, and it turns out to be that he's walking on some woman's body. So, yeah, this is kind of your typical 70s, man wants sex animation. There's breasts all over the place. It's naughty. It's got interesting animation at the very least. It's a little silly for my taste, but it's not as bad as like a lot of those other adult animated movies that I've seen. It's kind of tame compared to those, but it's still pretty naughty. And but yeah, again, nice animation and everything. Let's see. So next we got Dvorak's Slavonic Dance Number 7, Op 46. So yeah, it's about a caveman who like escapes from the caves, and he like builds his own house, and then all the other cavemen build their own houses, and then he like puts up a building, and then they do the same thing, and it's kind of like showing their evolution as like everyone's following the impression of this one guy, and then like he kind of gets sick of it, and he decides to trick them into running off a cliff after him, but they don't fall for that. He almost falls to his death, but he climbs back up, and they all moon him, and that's it. It's like less than 2 minutes or something. Well, yeah, more or less 2 minutes long. So yeah, it's definitely the shortest segment in here. Alright, next we got arguably the most famous segment in here. It's Ravel's Bolero, and yeah, it starts off with like an astronaut throwing a soda bottle, and like he's littering, and then like the the soda inside like turns all goopy, and it comes to life. It turns into some weird mutating monster that like gets bigger, and soon it like separates into a bunch of different monsters, and then it kind of turns into like evolution. So it's like Rite of Spring from Fantasia, and we watch these monsters kill each other, and then soon like this ape comes in, and the gorillas start taking over, and then it ends with like all the monsters like getting turned into like construction equipment and stuff, and all these buildings. So yeah, this is like a not so subtle jab at mankind. So yeah, I guess the 70s was a pretty popular time to talk about how much humanity sucks and civilization. It's yeah, and we kind of get hints of that, and well, yeah, I'll get into it as I move along. But anyway, then we get this rather sad segment about like this starving cat who's like hanging around a, what's the word? Dilapidated? Is that the right word? No, I think that's when they like fall apart on their own. Whatever. Yeah, I'll look up dilapidated on my own time. But anyway, it's a building that's being torn down, and the cat goes around the building and sees all these visions of the people inside. I guess it's kind of like a memory thing. So in a way, it's a lot like The Little Match Girl, the mainly the early 2000s Disney animation. It feels very similar to that, like where some poor small creature is like, you know, gonna die basically, and imagines itself in a much more comfortable environment. It sees a bunch of images or visions, and yeah, pretty sad segment and very well animated. Probably the best animation in the movie, which is saying something. There's quite a few interesting animations in here. Like Bolero is interestingly animated as well. But yeah, this one looked really nice. Very sad. I feel there might have been another hint at how much humanity sucks at the very end when the building gets completely demolished by a wrecking ball. But yeah, also the cat turns out to be a ghost, so yeah, so I guess the cat's already dead. But yeah, it's a sad segment. I'd say the best part of the movie, although Bolero's not too far behind, even if it's a little preachy. Let's see. Next, we get into lighter territory. Naturally, that's the natural direction to go after those last two segments. It's Vivaldi's Concerto in C Major, RV 559. It's about a female bee who's getting ready to eat a flower, and she has like all these nice little plates prepared and stuff. But then this couple comes along and they start basically making love on the grass. It's not as explicit as some of the other segments. Actually, there's no like explicit sex in this, but yeah, the couple doesn't take their clothes off or anything. Maybe like some of the clothes, but like not to the point that you see that much of them. But yeah, they're like rolling around on the grass and interrupting the bee's meal. And yeah, at the end she's had enough, and then she just stings the guy on his butt. So yeah. And then we have The Firebird, which, yeah, Stravinsky's The Firebird, which is, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Disney actually did put into Fantasia 2000, like, just over 3 decades later. So, yeah, I guess there's 2 different versions of animations put to this music. So yeah, I'd say, and they're both kind of like polar opposites, whereas the Disney version is like pretty and it's some of their best animation that I've seen. I'd have to watch Fantasia 2000 again to like really remember, but I do remember that segment had very beautiful animation and everything, and but yeah, this one's a bit more avant-garde, a bit more silly, cartoonish, experimental, and cynical. It's another not so subtle jab at humanity and civilization, and yeah. Yeah, it involves the snake from Adam and Eve trying to offer them an apple, and they refuse, and then he eats the apple. And then he has all these crazy visions of like these scary demon characters, showing off all these things that corrupts humanity, I guess. Sex, money, alcohol, to say the least. And yeah, it turns out to be a dream. He wakes up, he's still wearing these clothes he gets partway through, like a fedora and a suit. And he tells Adam and Eve what he saw. And yeah. You don't hear what he's saying. It's like vast and incomprehensible. But yeah. Silly, I guess. And then finally, so the movie ends like Well, like before the Firebird segment, the conductor got knocked into the floorboards, and afterward, like, the snake apparently escapes the animation and scares away all of the old lady, the old lady orchestra, scares them all away, and then, they cause, they cause a ruckus, and then the animator flies away with this lady he's been falling in love with throughout the movie, and they turn into cartoon characters, and they fly away and stuff. So the director and the conductor are left alone, and right before that we get the director calling this Igor-like character, and he tells him to find like some kind of finale animation in the archives, because there's no animator, no conductor. So he's gotta. So the Igor character looks around in these archives, and he finds a bunch of weird animations set to like. Well, it's like a bunch of closing scores to a bunch of famous compositions, like put together into this chaotic hodgepodge. Is that the right word? It finally ends with like a bunch of animations about a bunch of chaotic things going on, and it might be another jab at humanity, man. But after that, the conductor and the director were like talking about what they're gonna do next, and they talked about doing a ripoff of Snow White. Again, not realizing it's a ripoff, and So I probably wouldn't say the comedy was like super funny, but it had its moments, and I like the animations in a lot of the segments. It was an interesting take on Fantasia. I'm not going to pretend like this is like the masterpiece that Fantasia was, but it's definitely its own thing, and I think it's a worthy competitor, if you will. It's is there much else to say? I think there was enough variety in the animations. There was a nice mix of comedy and drama. Well, mostly between the animations. It mostly had a comedic edge, but there were like one or two segments that had enough focus on drama. It's very cynical, very very ham-fisted in its messages about the corruption of mankind and all that crap. But overall, I think this was a legitimately good, take on Fantasia, like I said. So, it's an interesting movie, and if you're a fan of Fantasia, I would definitely recommend it. So, so I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10, and, I guess if there's anything else I feel I need to add, I'll put it in the comments. And I'll just leave it at that for now. Mash it and smash it, signing off.